Yeah.
I would like to welcome everyone to the first day of Donald John Trump's second term, right? And Bez Hashem, and Shir will have only two people, males and males.
Except you call it a girl.
That hasn't happened in a long time. That's not happened in a long time. Okay, Lamed Gimel Amid Beis, Dinei Mamonis Hakol. We said that anyone could go ahead and when it comes to Dinei Mamonis, you can be Melamed Schus or Chov. And Mashen came by Dinei Nefashos only a schus, not a chov. Now, it's mashma anyone when it says hakol, lafilu edim, even edim, mashma even the edim could go ahead and give advice. Now, they testify what they testify, and then they can go ahead and if they can be melamed schus, they're melamed schus. Masni's son is Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. It's Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. The Lay Rabbanon, the Tanya says ve'ed echad lo yana benefesh. Get a pasuk. Here's the whole pasuk. Kol maka nefesh lefi. That's not the pasuk. Yes, it is. Kol maka nefesh lefi edim yitzach esaretzeach. You kill him. The eid echad lo ya'ane benefesh lamas. And it says eid echad should not answer the benefesh lamas. What does that mean? Right. The Tanya ve'eid echad lo ya'ane benefesh bein l'schus bein l'chova. An eid can't open his mouth, whether it's the schus or chova. To say again, remember Vitzilu as Eida. Usually we do everything in our power to save the person. In this case, not. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Oina l'schus, ve'ein oina l'chayva. It could be oina l'schus, ve'ein oina l'chayva. So the chayra our Mishnah would be what that said that you believe l'schus would be Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. Amra Papa, the echad mitamidim. It's not speaking about the Eidim. It's, again, like the way we learned Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, who could be Oina, who could answer. Again, l'schos, we said it would only be if it's speaking about the Eidim, it would be only alluding to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, because the Chacham say the Eid can't say anything, guys. The Eid can't open his mouth. Period. Mishnah said the Eid, whoever it is, can be Malamed l'schos. So the assumption is that even an Eid, that would only be Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, because like the Chachamim, the Eid can't say anything. Rav Papa says it's not speaking about the Eid. It's speaking about the gallery that was in front. We saw there's 3 rows of interns learning, and they're in front. And if one of them can go ahead and be Malamed Schus to go ahead and save the defendant, so he l'chayv not, but what? But the Schus yes. And everyone would agree with that. So you're not limited to say the Mishnah of Rabbi Yehuda, because we're not speaking about Eidim, we're speaking about the Talmidim. It's going to everyone. Okay. My time with Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. They're going back. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says the Eid could go ahead and say l'schus. The Amakra, the pasuk says, Eidecha lo yana benefesh lamus. And we make the deal, guys. Lamus hu de'ena oina. It can't be oina lamus. It can't be oina lamus. Aval l'schus oina. But for schus he could. So an Eid, if he sees a reason to be mizaka the defendant, will accept that. Now the Rabbanan said the Eid cannot go ahead and say anything. So now we learned Pshat in the Mishnah of Papa. Again, there was a Pshat in the Mishnah suggested that it's like Rabbi Yehuda. We're now going back and analyzing the machlokes between the two. So if the pasuk says an Eid can't open his mouth, lamus in mashma for the chayv to kill, but for another reason to save, he could open his mouth. And now the Rabbanan who say he can't open his mouth even to save, what do they do with the pasuk? Rabbanan amar reish lakish mishum the michzi kanagea beidusay. It appears what it is nageya beidus. It appears the reason why he can't is it appears he was a nageya beidus. Says the top Rashi. Rabbanan the army afil l'schus lo yaneh mishum the nageya hu bedavar shemischaret boy. He regrets what he did. V'doyeg shema yigmar adin l'chayva. What guys? What's happening over here, guys? Eye contact. The guy went ahead, Adim. They said this guy killed somebody. Now, all of a sudden, he's finding a schus to say he didn't kill somebody. So obviously, what's beneath the surface? He must have lied. If I lied, remember the fear? What's the fear factor? Hazama. So what? The guy wants to save his skin now. Says the Chachamim, he's not gay at that what? In the Aedis to go retract the Aedis because of this fear. Very geschmack svara. So again,
let's say no Adam come, then they're gonna kill him.
What?
Let's say no Adam come to be
again. So you're right. So the guy again. What's the fear factor? No, this is the svara behind. You got a pasuk apparently that says you should be able to go ahead and testify to save the guy. Why would the Chum disagree? So it's a svara. It's a svara. You don't know. You don't know if they. Again, we al pishnai made him yakim davar. The Torah gives ne'emanis to Edis, tremendous ne'emanis to Edis. If he goes ahead and retracts, doesn't that take away from his ne'emanis, Baruch?
Yeah.
So, but he's not really retracting. He's being malamed schus. Again, we'll see what that means. He'll be malamed schusim. In other words, he'll find a reason, some other thing that won't make him necessarily a liar. But why is he doing it? Because maybe in his heart of hearts, he regrets what he did. Let's finish Rashi. And now, and after the Gemar Din, then you're subject to Hazama. Remember, Hazama is not before Gemar Din, only after Gemar Din. V'yavi is the Eidim lahazimam. Umahader loimatzim hadabahu. Lacha kadei dibor. Once he already testified, he can't testify. So Rashi tells us, mamish, a mouthful. Guys, a mouthful of lumdis. He go ahead. And the end is, the limit schus might be a schus. But we go ahead in the psychology, why is he doing that in the first? If he has a schus to save this guy in the first place, why did he testify against him? It must be now that somewhere along the line he regrets. Maybe he thinks, 1 second, I was over here in this place, and maybe the guy saw me, and who knows? And now, therefore, and he can't retract. You'd say the easiest way to go is, so if you're worried about your own skin, retract. And the answer is, he after he can't. Because Kima Shehigid, once you said your testimony, Shuveni Chayzer Magid, you can't return. So that's the reason why. It's a svara. It's a svara. For Rabbanan Ami, like Reish Lakish, in the name Reish Lakish, Mishum the Mechsi Kanagea Beidusoy. The Mechsi Baruch. It appears as if he's Nagea Beidus. The key word being it appears. For Rabbanan Hailamas Maidashi. Okay, the bottom line, what do the Chachamim do with the pasuk of Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda? Again, it says Lamos, it's mashma you could. Why did the Rabbanan do with that pasuk? Mukmi la be'echem Talmidim. He'll say it's not speaking about Eidim, it's speaking about one of the Talmidim. Einachanami, one of the Talmidim sitting in front is able to melamed schus. Tanya. Right? You minayin le'echem in the Talmidim, sham yesh lamed minayin shein shoymim loy. Chayva, Talmud loyma, echad lo yana benefesh lamus. Lamus, right? Echad. This echad mean one of the Talmidim can't go ahead and be melamed chayva. But lamus, why? For lamus, which is a chayv, he can't. But for schus, he could. Okay. The next din was what? Was dine nefashos, right? Dine nefashos. You melamed chilas schus. You can go right. Then you can go ahead even though you're melamed a chayv, initially you can go ahead and be melamed a schus. But if you're melamed a schus tchila, you're not able to go ahead and be malamer chayv. Okay, guys, again, one more time. If you were one of the dayanim and you were malamed a chayv, you could retract and be malamed a schus. However, if you were malamed a schus, you cannot go back and retract. Now, this appears to be kind of funny. Why? Because initially, this is the way you feel, but upon edus, upon what you hear, and upon the dialogue between the dayanim, maybe you'll change your mind. So just because my initial thought and feeling was for schus, why can't I change my mind? And Rav addresses that. Guys, here's the Gemara. Rav says the following. Says Rav, you can't retract initially, because if you do, you won't go ahead and find real rayas and proofs to what you feel compelled to go ahead and substantiate your feelings. So therefore, if you can't change your mind, you're going to go ahead and be malamed schus, and you're going to go ahead with that in mind. Masha'en came, once you get to the Gemar Din and you've heard everything, says Rav, you could change your mind. So Rav is going ahead and qualifying the Mishnah. When the Mishnah says, if you're malamed schus, you can't change your mind to chayv, it only means b'shas the masu mata of the dayanim. But b'shas the Gemar Din, if you feel that the guy is chayiv, of course you can change your mind. That's Rav's din, and then the Gemara is going to question Rav. Okay, that's the din. That's the aim on the blackboard, that you could change your mind b'shas Gemar Din, and the Gemara is going to question that. Amar Rav, Laishanu, we did not learn that a person who's Malamed Schus can't change his mind for Chayv. Excuse me, Ela b'shas masu matan, during the give and take of the dayanim. Al b'shas gemar din, when they come to be counted, fellas, when they come to be counted, whether this person is worthy of the death penalty or not, malamed schus, chayzu malamed chayva. Then, if you malamed schus initially, you could go ahead and be malamed a chayva. Look at Rashi. B'shas gemar din shechipesh kfar hakol. You checked out everything. V'yachshav nira sheta. You made a mistake thinking that what the person is zeicha. Chazar malamid chayva. You would go ahead then and be able to go ahead what be chayzer and be malamid chayva. You could go ahead and be chayzer malamid chayva. Guys, you good? Again, important to get this because the whole Gemara is going to be based upon this. So one more time, guys. One more time. The Mishnah says the following words: if you're malamid a chayv, you could go ahead and change your mind to malamid schus. If you're malamid a schus, you can't change your mind to malamid chayva. Says Rav. What does it mean you can't change your mind? During the Masa Umata, but by the Gemar Din at that time, after you went through the whole thing and you see that what you're compelled to change your mind at B'shas Gemar Din to be counted to mechayev him, you could. Meisivei, we're going to ask on this. Lemachros, it's a Mishnah later on Daf Mem. It's speaking about leaving the din overnight. We said that dinei nefashos, guys, you never paskin. If you're going to be mechayev the guy, it won't be on the same day. You're going to have alanis. You're going to leave it overnight, right? If you find the guy l'chayv, you always leave it a little longer. L'machras mashkimim uboyin hamizakim uboyin. Right? They get up. Hamizakim oimer ani hamizake umizake ani bim koimi. I was mizaka initially, and I'm staying the course. Hamachayev oimer ani hamachayev umechayev ani bim koimi. Hamalamid chayva, hamalamid schus. Someone initially was malamid chayva, became malamid schus. Avalamid schus, any yachal achsav malamid chayva. Good. So it says that if you are what a malamid a schus, you can't change your mind. Now, what is lemachros, guys? B'shas masu matan or b'shas gemar din? For the gemar lemachros gemar din, who gemar din is going to be the next day. Again, you can't go ahead. It's halonis din. You're going to keep it overnight. So the assumption is, when this is speaking about leaving it overnight, it must be b'shas gemar din, and it says what? If you're malamid schus, you can't change your mind. Kasha and Rav. Again, the reason you're leaving it overnight is to deliberate, and right, you're giving it time. Now it's the next day. What are you going to assume it's the next day? This is gemar din, and nonetheless, what does the Mishnah say in Daf Mem? If you're malamid schus, you can't be malamid chayva. Mashma, once you decide that, you can't change your mind. Kasha and Rav. You mean the next day there's no deliberation? Guys, if there's no deliberation the next day, why'd you bother staying overnight? The reason staying overnight is to think it out, right? So the next day, of course, there's going to be a masu mata. Of course, the next day is going to be masu mata. You're going to think it out. Ki ketani b'shas masu mata. When we say you can't change your mind, that's b'shas masu mata. So the next day, not only do you have gemar din, but you have an additional masu mata, deliberations back and forth, and it's that during that time of deliberations that the one who's malamid schus cannot be malamid chayva. But as soon as you get to the gemar din, if he wants to change his mind, absolutely. Tashma. Danin elu keneged elu, at sheyira echem min hamachayavim. Okay, so what are we speaking about over here? They're going in. This is all the process, guys, of the court case. So done in elu keneged elu. Let's say you have 71 dayanim. So you have, let's see Rashi, that nechelku bedin shloishim v'sheish mechayavim. You have 36 mechayev, u'shloishim v'chamishim mizakim, and you have what? 35. So 35 and 36 is 71. We all know by now. In a capital punishment case, if it's the lechayiv, you need what? 2. So that you only have 1. The kaimelon ein matin lechayiv al pi echad. So donim bar yisayim elu keneged elu. Each one goes ahead and presents their proofs. At sheyachsebay echem min hamachayavim. Until one of the mechayiv one is what? Changes his mind. The havilim mizakin ruba, and then you'll have what? You'll have more roiv of mizakim. It doesn't say one of the priests who was mizaka could change his mind l'chayva. The Misa the Gemar din yachal achsar l'lamid chayva Nisni nami ipcha. Go ahead and learn the opposite. In other words, not just to get one who's chayiv to be changed his mind l'schus, even when it's schus to change his mind to chayiv. V'nema oyachim and mizakim es direi amechayavim dikei atil ra pishnayim. Okay, so here's the Gemara. Let's see the Gemara and let's see the Kasha. So the next day, Toshma, Donan Elu Keneged Elu, At Shiyira Echem and Amechayavim Direi Mizakim. So in other words, you want to go ahead and get the majority of what of the Mizakim. So if one of the Chayavim, we just get him to go to the positive side, and then you're good. Vim Isa, fellas. Vim Isa, and if you're a positive, you can go to a negative like Rav. Vim Isa, that Rav says. If you're positive, you go to a negative. Listening Nami Ipka. Why don't you learn the opposite? Ella, when you didn't learn the opposite, it must be what? You can't change your mind. Kasha on Rav. And for the Gemara, Tana Aschus Kamahader, Achayvela Kamahader. We want what are we doing? We're looking to go after what? To save the guy. We're not looking to kill the guy. Rashi, Tana Aschusa, Nichalei Ladure. It's better to go after Aschus to save him. Umasni, Mishum Lishnama Alya. Who I did not who I didn't. It's in other words, in Judaism, even in the Chumash and the Gemara in the Mishnah, we always want to use the lashon that's very positive, very famous, right? We don't say behemoth meya, we say what? Einenu tahira. That's what we say. So over here we have a choice. You tell me a halacha. I could choose to save the guy. I could choose to kill the guy. They're both true. I'm going to choose to use the lashon to save the guy. Therefore, your kasha is not a kasha. You want to say that why it's the only reason we want to get the mechayev to change his mind to be a positive. The reason we did that because that's what we want. But in a chinami, if it was a positive, went to the negative like Rav, it would be true. Tashma, another challenge to Rav. The Amr Rabbi Yossi B'Chanina, Echem min al-Talmidim shezika, one of the Talmidim that was Zeicha, in this case one of the Dayanim, umeis, and he dies. Roy and Isai will view him ki'ilu chai, as if he's alive. V'oimed bim kaimai, and we'll keep his what? We'll keep his vote. We'll keep his vote. V'amai nema ilu havikayim hadebe. Right? Why don't we say maybe if he was alive? In other words, he said he initially said Zaycha. You're telling me at the Gemara Din he could change. Why are you assuming that what? That maybe why do you assume that he won't change? Maybe he would change. Ella must be the what? He can't change. Kashan Rav. Must be you can't change. Kashan Rav. And for the Gemara, bottom line is as of yet what? He hasn't changed his mind. In other words, no assumptions. Ain't nothing. Well, Fred the Gemara Tom. They sent from Eretz Yisrael L'divrei Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina Moitzi Machal Rabbeinu. From the words of Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina, he's arguing Rabbeinu. Now Rabbeinu is Rav. Rav is saying you could change your mind. Here we're saying Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina that you can't change your mind. And Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina, guys, is the Tana of our Mishnah. Says the Gemara might see it, man. Right? I said Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina is Tana Mishnah. I didn't mean that. It means the Tana of the Brisa anyway. So in other words, don't learn that what Moitzi Mechal ain't Moitzi. Learn that it's not Moitzi, meaning Rabbi Yosef B'Chanina is consistent with Rav. He's consistent with Rav. Okay. Tashma, again, a question on Rav. Shnei Seifri Hadayanim. You have the two stenographers. Oindim Lefneim. Echem in Yamin, Vechem in Asmol. One on the right and one on the left. The Koisvin Divrei Amizakim. They write down the words of the ones who are Zoicha. The Divrei Amechayavim, and the words of the ones of Mechayev. Now, Bishleim, Divrei Amechayavim, Lemachar, Chazi Taim Achrina, Uboy Lemevad, Halanistin. In other words, we have to write down the words of Mechayev, because maybe you're going to have another reason tomorrow, and we'll have to extend the Halanis Adin one more day. We'll extend it one more time. Again, we'll see this later on, in the Mishnah later on. El Divrei Amizakim, my timer. Why do you write down the words in the Mizakim? Why are you writing it down? It must be why, because we don't want to let him change his mind. We have to know what he says. Says Gemara, we write down the words in the Mizakim that they should not have what? From the same pasuk, from two different pasukim, the same reason. There's a rule in Shas. The Torah is very, very exact. The Torah, from one pasuk, you can learn a lot of halachas, but you don't need two psukim to tell me the same halacha. If two psukim are telling you the same halacha, One of the people darshaning is making a mistake. So in their deliberations, the one who's mezaka finds one pasuk, right, with this reason, and another one of them finds another pasuk with the same reason. So the reason we have to write it down is not because you can't change your mind. The reason is because one of them is wrong. But the reason is one of them is wrong. We'll only count it as one. We won't count it as two. We'll only count it as one. The Gemara now will digress to go ahead and figure out where exactly do we see such a case where what? Where you have machlokes, two psukim to teach me one din. And that's going to take us the rest of the Amid and the Amid.
And you did send it out. You sent it out 3:00.
You know, I didn't have it on my screen. Okay, now I sent it to you. I didn't send it to me. Okay, so now, guys, so let's just chazer iber, right? Let's chazer iber. The Mishnah said if you mlamed a chayiv, you could change your mind to mlamed schus. If you mlamed schus, you can't change your mind. Rabbi is qualifying that you can't change your mind when during the masu mata. Why? Because we want you to go ahead and chase your psak. Because if we tell you can change your mind, maybe you won't be as strong in trying to find out why you were mizaka. You may vacillate. Anyway, so the Gemara there questioned Rav from Mishnayis Vaita. Rav held serve. And the last question that we asked, why do you have the mizaka have to write it down? Right? It must be because you want to make sure that you don't change your mind. And the answer is no. The reason you write it down is we want to make sure that two people are not going ahead and learning the same din from two separate psukim, because you can't do that. And now the Gemara is going to try to find can you possibly see that there are two psukim that teach me the same din. Okay. Kidei shlo tam echad mishnei mikrois. Kideboy minei Rav Asi Rabbi Yochanan. Amru shnayim tam echad mishnei mikrois. Mahu amalei eimaynu lo yala echad. We're only going to count it as one. We're not going to count it as two wins. We'll only count it as one win, one zakai. Minani mili. How do you know what? You can't go ahead. Where's your source that you can't have 2 for 1? Rabbi damakra the pasuk at the Hillim. Achas diber elikim. Shtayim zu shemati ki yoyzel elikim. Mikra echad yoyzel lekama taimim. One mikra could come and teach me many things. Vein tam echad yoyzel mikama mikrois. But one thing can't come out. One reason it came out for many psukim. The Rabbi Shmuel Tana ukipatich yefutzet sela. Like guys, it's not like the hammer shatters the rock. It's like the rock shatters the hammer. The rock is Torah. It's ukiputish yefutzet sela. It's like the rock. This way, Rashi learns that the hammer shatters the rock. Ma pat zem mischalik lekamani tzaitzais. The hammer goes ahead and it's mischalik to many sparks. Af mikra echad. So to one pasuk yoytzel lekamet taimim. Okay, heichi dami tam echad mishnei mikrois. Where do you find an example of? Of one reason behind many psukim? Where do you find such a thing? Behind 2 psukim. So Amar Rav Zvid Kiditnan. So now, guys, we're going to do a lot of kachim. Okay, we're going to do a lot of kachim. So there's a lach in kachim azoi that if something was royal mizbeach and something happened to it, even the oila once it goes up, it doesn't come down, because what goes up does not necessarily have to come down. What goes up does not necessarily have to come down. It can go up.
It's not allowed to come.
It's im alu lo yardu. It stays up there. Okay, then you don't put it back up. Mizbeach mekadesh es royla. The mizbeach can be mekadesh es royla. Says Rashi, second line, wide line. Ubelvache yedava shenira kvar lemizbeach. It has to be something that already was seen to the mizbeach. Umizvach mefarshi lemuute. This would exclude kamatzim shlei kitzu bekli. Let's say the kaimitz, fellas. In the process of the kaimitz, you take the kaimitz, the fistful of flour, and you put it in a kli. Let's say you didn't put it in the kli, you put it directly in the mizbeach. Then it would come down. Okay, that avol pigel where you had the different machshava, right, of chutz l'makom, chutz l'zman, in one of the 4 avodas of the shchita, halacha, kabbalah, or zrika, v'nishbach damai, and then the blood was spilled, v'nishchat b'machshavas psul, imal lo yardu, if it goes up, it stays up. Goes up. So something that's royal mizbeach goes up, stays up. Back in the Gemara. So mizbeach mekadesh royal, Rabbi Yeshua Omer, kol royal liishim, anything that's royal for the fire, im alu lo yarid. Okay, shenemar ha'oila al maikda, the oila on its pyre, ma oila shehi ru'uya leishim, just like an oil is way for it's called a burnt earth offering for a reason. It's burnt im also lo it doesn't come down. Af kol shuroy leishim, anything that's roy for the fire, im alu lo yarid. Rabbi Gamliel loimer kol roy lemizbeach, anything that's roy lemizbeach, im alu lo yarid. If it goes up, it stays up. Shenemar hi ha'oila al maikda al mizbeach. Ma oila shi ro'uya legabi mizbeach. Af also lo sered. Af kol shuroy lemizbeach im alu lo yarid. Now, they're both learning the same thing. What are they learning, guys? They're learning im alu lo yardu, but they're learning it from two psukim. One is learning from the word oila, and one is learning from al mizbeach. Good. So this is an example of what? Of two psukim, in this case, two parts of a pasuk, teaching me one din. So for Travayu, my kamarbi, why are they both being marba? Sai Rabbi Yeshua, Sai Rabbi Gamliel, psulim, right? They're being marba, things that are puzzle. If there's a carbon, if it goes up, it stays up. Mar maisilam and maikdo, one is learning from the pyre, umar maisilam misbeach. So here, guys, they're both learning the same thing. Now, fellas, this is the key. Learning the same thing means they don't argue. They don't argue. In other words, each one is teaching me only one din. What's the din? If it goes up, it stays up. What happens if they're arguing? Then obviously, they're arguing. Then they're not teaching us the same thing, right? Fred the Gemara, v'hahasa miflak pligi, Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel, they're arguing. They're not teaching me the same thing. The Tani Seifa, the Seifa of the Brisa or the Mishnah, Ein bein divrei Rabbi Gamliel and divrei Rabbi Yeshua. There's no difference. Ella hadam v'hanisachim. Does dam go on the mizbeach? Absolutely. Does nisachim go on the mizbeach? Absolutely. Does dam and nisachim go on the fire? They don't. So the one who learns from Ishim would not include dam and nisachim. The one who learns that alam is beach, they would stay up. They stay up. You know why they stay up? Because he learns from the word mizbeach, and both dam, nisachim, and animals have shaychus to mizbeach. However, Rabbi Yeshua, Oimei Yardu, they come down because he learns from the word ishim, and both the dam and the sachim, they don't go on the ishim. The dam goes on the corners, and the ishim go out on the, and then the sachim go in the holes. So once they argue over here, this can't be the example of two psukim teach me one din, because they're two separate dinim. Says the Gemara, Ella Amrav Papa, another source. Kidatanya, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Mitoy Shenamar Amid Beis. Kol Hanageya b'mizbeach Yagdish, anything that touches the mizbeach, even psulim, is kodesh. In other words, it stays up. Shemeyani bein roi bein shein roi. Now, guys, this is different. Look at Rashi. Shemeyani bein shenira bein shaloi nira. Kigoin sa'ar. Are you allowed to put chametz on mizbeach? Ixnei, devash. No. Ayol, achaya, tzvi, chulin. No. So when you said kolin mizbeach yagdish is mashma, even something that's not roi. So not roi here is different than before. Before it was kasha, but you had psul. Over here means it's innately not right. In other words, it can never go on the mizbeach. I would think Talmud Laimar kvasim. So what does the pasuk say again? The whole pasuk is v'zeh shetase al mizbeach. Kivasim b'nei shana shnayim liyoim tamid. Okay, this is the parsha of the carbon tamid. It says kvasim, ma kvasim ro'yin, just like kvasim sheep are roi for the mizbeach, af kol roi. So too, anything that stays up, it has to be roi. But if you have a deer, or if you have yeast, if you have fruit, it comes down. Rabbi Kiva Omer, the pasuk says, oilas tamid l'doirei seichem. The word says oila. So now oila, ma oila ru'uya, av kol roi. V'travayu mai komemayit. Why are they both being mamayit? Psule. They're both being marba psulim. However, mar maisila mikvasim, and mar maisila Rabbi Kiva me oila. So l'chayra two psukim that are teaching me the same thing, guys. Two psukim that apparently are teaching me what? The same thing. Yes. Fred Gemara, they argue. The difference would be oilis oif, a bird that's an oif that's puzzle. Now you could bring an oilis oif. Manda maisalim kvasim, kvasim in, aval oilis oif loy. Kvasim stay up, but oilis oif would come down. Umada maisalim oila, afilu oilis oif. Rabbi Akiva would say the oilis oif is puzzle, it stays up. So in other words, once you have enough gemina, fellas, then it's not two psukim teaching me the same thing. So in this case, the Tanakama, Vasim, Oila would come down because it's not a sheep. It's a bite, right? It's a bite. Anyway, the light Rabbi Akiva, it's an Oila. Once it's an Oila, despite the fact that it's being a bird, nonetheless it would stay up. So this can't be the example of what of two psukim teach you the same thing. Okay, if I sent it out, go to the pasuk. We can go through a parsha in the Torah. It'll make things a lot easier. Okay, there's two parshas in the Torah, guys. There's a parsha of what's called shchutei chutz, and there's a parsha of halah b'chutz. Shchutei chutz means you shech the carbon outside, and halah means you burn it. Okay, two separate averis. So the pasuk is picking us up in the middle. We're picking up the pasuk in the middle, and the pasuk is stating that you should not go ahead and shecht an animal. Don't shecht in the machna. You don't bring it to the Pesach, the oil moed. Lahakriv karban Hashem lifnei mishkan Hashem. Dam yichoshev lishahu. It's considered murder for this person. Dam shafach, he spilled blood. A person who shechs bachutz, guys, gets kares. Good? That's what Pasuk Dalet teaches me. A person that shechs bachutz gets kares. In order that you should bring it, now let's go ahead. Now we have another Pasuk. Now, the El Leim Timer Ishish and Beis Yisrael Min Ager Asher Yoga B'Soicham Asher Pasuk Ches Asher Yale Oila Oisavach Asher Yale. He goes ahead. What he brings up burns. Yale means to burn. Oila Oisavach. That's usually an oil or a shlamim. Vel Pesach Oil Moed Lo Yevienu Lasai Sai Sai. Right, La Hashem. V'Nikras HaNefesh Shehu Me'amav. He gets kares. So you have, guys, two parshas in the Torah. You have a parsha of shchutei chutz and a parsha of hela bachutz. By each one, it says you get kares. Good. By each one, it says you get kares. So we introduced two things. Now let's see what the Gemara does with it. Okay, we'll see what the Gemara does with it. So we're still looking for what? We're still looking for two psukim to teach me the same din. Ela Amar Vashi Kidatanya. This is by Shchutei Chutz. Dam Yichoshev Leishahu. It's considered murder. Dam Shafach. The Rabbi says has Zoyrik. Now, guys, we only had what? Shoichet. We only had Haktara. Says this pasuk, it's to be marba. Dam Shafach is to be marba Zoyrik. If you spritz the carbon outside, you take the blood, you spritz it outside. You don't do it inside. Chayav kares. Dir Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Oizavach. This is by the pasha of Ma'al, guys. This is by the pasha of burning. Oizavach. The Rabbi says Zoyrik. So what's the din that they're learning, guys? That there's a din of kares by what? Zurikas bachutz. B'travayu ma'ikon marbe. What are both the Tanakama and Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel? What are they coming to go ahead? And Rabbi Shmuel learns it from Dam Yichoshev, and the other one from Azavach. Ma Maisilami Dam Yichoshev, Ma Maisilami Azavach. So they're both teaching me the same thing, that Zrika Bachutz is Chayiv. Good. but they're learning from the same source. I v'amravo shochet v'zorik ikabinayu. So now you want to suggest what, fellas? That it's a machlokes. Shochet v'zorak ikabinayu. Whether, let's say you did both, you shechted and you did zrika. The Rabbi Shmuel ein chayiv ala achas. Guys, let Rabbi Shmuel, who learns it from the parsha of Shchita, Dam Yechoshev, you'd only be over one Isser, and therefore you only be chayiv once. The Rabbi Akiva, who learns it from the parsha of what? Of burning, Hashtayim. So in other words, there's two separate parshas over here. There's two separate parshas. So Feg the Gemara, like this. Guys, outside, eye contact. We want to learn out what? Two psukim for the same din. What's the din over here? Tzrika b'chutz. One Rabbi Shmuel has the pasuk of Shchita, Rabbi Akiva has the parsha of burning, of halah. And you're both learning out what? Tzrika. Says the Gemara, it can be nayu. Like Rabbi Yishmael from Shchita, if you did both, you shechted and you was zarak, you be chayiv only once, because the whole ribuy of zrika came from Shchita. But like Rabbi Akiva, who learns it from halah, from burning, you be chayiv twice. Right? Once for Shchita, and the other one in the Parsha of Allah, you learn Zrika, you be chayiv twice. So again, if there's an afkamina in halacha, they're not teaching me the same thing. So you haven't been successful finding what? The makar for 2-1. You haven't been successful. As I read the Gemara. Ha'itmar Allah, Amar Abaya, Afa div Rabbi Akiva nami enu chayiv ala achas. Even according to the words of Rabbi Akiva, you'd only be chayiv once. The Amar Krua, the pasuk says, Sham tala oilesecha, v'sham tasa, and there they'll do it. Now, guys, the pasuk in Devarim, in Rei, it says tasa to burn, ta'ale to burn, v'tasa, and tasa l'chayre is any one of the other avodas. They make a hekesh between the two. They make a hekesh between the two that you only chayev one, meaning the whole source is halah. So if shchita is one of the tasa, guys, look at me. You have one word halah, one word tasa. The word tasa means the other avodas, including the srika and the shchita. So since their source is halah, even like Rabbi Akiva, you'd only be chayiv what? You only be chayiv one. So there is no nafkamina between the two, between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. If you shachat v'zarek, you only chayiv once. Memela, we have found the source of two psukim teaching me the same din. This was successful. That the Indian Zrika, Rabbi Akiva learns from halah, and Rabbi Shmuel learns from shchita. These are two psukim teaching me the same din, and we're successful. Okay, let's just do Rashi for a quick second. Rashi says, Af Rabbi Akiva shtei, you only chayiv once. Nice Rashi. The Afagav, the Ikka shtei krisis. We have, as we saw in the parsha, there's two chorus. There's a chorus by shchita, and there's a chorus by burning. Right? Hoyel ve'im behem el ashara achas. Since there's only one ashara, you only warned once. Ein chilek chatois b'neim. There's only what? Since there's only one warning, therefore you only be chayiv once. You know, in order to be chayiv, you have to be warned. There's only one asra over here. It's the same asra. The aim b'mayla ksiva ashara b'apei nafshi. Mahalah has its own ashara. Hisham lecha pentala lesecha. That's the pasuk in the bottom. The ilu shaychit b'zoyrik aim b'm ashara ela mehekesh. They only have a ashara from a hekesh to halah. So memela, like Rabbi Akiva, halah and shchita are the same thing. The ishkis l'mayla, the chsiv sham talasecha v'sham tiyasa, ishkis shara siyais lahalah, shchita is rika to halah, u'mihachan afkel l'shchayis. So therefore, what you only be chayiv once for shchita, because shchita is learned from halah, and therefore since it's learned from halah, it's only one ashara, because there's no ashara by shchita, and the mela what you only be chayiv once, and there's no nafkamina, and therefore we've been successful finding two psukim that teach me the same thing. And what's that? Shchutei chutz and like Rabbi Yishmael. Halah b'chutz like Rabbi Akiva, teaching me the halacha that what? That zrika b'chutz is also chayiv. That was the now very geshmak. Dinei mamnis dana bayom v'goyim b'layla. Dinei the fashais you stop by during the day and you conclude when? The next day, but not at night. Simin mishpat manemata. Manani mili. Where's the Gemar Din? Where do you know the Gemar Din could be at night? Where do you know by Dini Mamnis the Gemar Din could be at night? Amar B'chia by Papa Damakra. The Shaftu Esa'am B'chaleis. Mashma you can judge the people at any time. Mashma you can judge the people at any time, meaning even at night. Ihachi Tchilas Din Nami. Why do you say it means the end of the din? Maybe it means the beginning of the din also. Maybe the whole thing can be at night. Says the Marakid the Rava Rami, Ksiv v'shaftu esa'am b'choleis, you judge the people at any time, or Ksiv v'haya b'yomim v'chilo, Linya Nachla, which is Dine Mominus, right? Nachla is Dine Mominus. It says in the day you will be manchel. So we have a stira. One here is mashma afilu at night. The other one biyom and chil is mashma only during the day. Okay, sad. Yom is techila sadin that satisfies the pasuk v'yom chilu. Laila gemar din and that shaftim chaleis is speaking about the gemar din. Therefore, Dine Mominus can be concluded at night. Says the Gemara, Masisin like Reb Meir. Our Mishnah is not like Reb Meir. The Tanya, Hey Reb Meir Omer, Ma Tamaloima Al Piyam Yeh Kol Riv. Through their mouths will be all the riv is any monetary fight, v'chol nega or any question of tzaras. V'chima inyan rivim eitzel negoyim. Why does the Torah juxtapose them together? Elamakish rivim lenegoyim. Ma negoyim bayoyim tichsiv uvayom herois boy af rivim bayoyim. In other words, everything has to be during the day. There can't be Gemar din at night, guys. Everything during the day. So therefore, our Mishnah says that Dinei Mominus can be concluded in the evening. It's not according to Reb Meir. Uman negoyim shaloi besumim. And negoyim cannot be what? By sumim, a person who is blind in one eye. Dechsiv l'chol mara einei hakayin. Einei is lashon of plural. Again, there's no havamina, guys, that the negoyim can be seen by a totally blind person, right? That'd be ludicrous. So it means that a person is blind in one eye cannot see Negoyim. Afrivim shaloi besumim. So too, any monetary fight cannot be educated by a person who is what? Blind in one eye. Umakish Negoyim levivim, and that's now. So we went from Negoyim rivim to Negoyim. Now we're going from Negoyim to Rivim. Ma rivim shaloi bekroivim. After Negoyim shaloi bekroivim. Interesting. A kohen who's a korev cannot pronounce on what on a person nega, his relative. If you're going to go through this way, making the comparison, just like monetary disputes over 3 dayanim after Negoyim b'shleisha, so to Negoyim you need 3 kahanim. V'dinhu, and there's a svara to say you should need 3 kahanim. Memoina b'shleisha, memoina when it's his possessions, his money. Gufo they call shekain, certainly himself. Tamaloima for huva, and the person who has a potential tzaras is brought el Aaron akayin ayalecha mibanav. Right, so you see that what. Aaron or one of his sons. So you see what? 1. Okay, the bottom line is, you see like Reb Meir, everything has to be during the day. Dinei Mominus can't be what? Seen at night. Hahu Samya, there was this person who was blind in one eye. Davi Bishavisa Reb Yochanan, who was in the neighborhood of Reb Yochanan. Davi Doyin Dinim, he was not judging dins. He didn't say anything to him. The halacha is like a stam mishnah. B'tnan kol hechsha lodain kasha lehayid, v'yesha kasha lehayid vein kasha lodain. There are those who kasha lehayid and not kasha lodain. V'am Rabbi Yochanan lasuye suma ba'achas meyenov. Now, a suma in one eye, guys, could be kasha le'edis, but he can't. Look at the lashon, guys. He's kasha to testify, ve'ein kasha lodain, but he's not kasha to judge. So it must be what? Lasuye, a person who is blind in one eye. He's an acceptable witness, but he's not an acceptable dayan. That's questioning Rabbi Yochanan's action, who allowed this suma in one eye to judge. So l'chayra, Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha is like an anonymous mishnah. We have an anonymous mishnah saying what? Like Reb Meir, anonymous mishnah said a person that with one eye, he can't judge. He can't judge. And for the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan stoma achrita ashkach. He found another stam. He found another stam. Dinei Mammon is done in Bayoim, the Goyim in Balayla. Now at night, guys, it's dark. You can't see. So what do you see? You could finish at night. Now here's the question. So and the Summa is like compared to night. Yes? The Summa is compared to night. So you have 2 stam mishnayos. One saying that you can't judge, and with one eye, one says you could. Yes? Why did Rabbi Yochanan opt for the latter rather than the previous? Why did he opt for say that the one that Summa you could rather than the previous one? My olmei the high stama, my high stama. Why is the second stam stronger than the first stam? Iba is saying a stama the rabim adif. The first stam, guys, was a meya. The second stam was the chachamim. So a rabim over a rameya would take precedence. Iba is saying mishum the tanila gabe hilchasa dedina. Okay. In other words, the second stam, guys, was in Masech the Sanhedrin. The first stam was Masech the Nida. You brought it in Masech the Nida. In other words, fellas, when Rebbe was Masad in the Mishnayos, he placed this din of Kala Kasha Ladin is Kasha Lahey is right. Kala Kasha Lahey is not necessarily Kasha Ladin. He placed it in the context of Nida. It had what to do in that Masechta. but that wasn't the main topic to discuss what Dayanis. Masha'en came the latter one that discussed what the Goyim B'Yoyim, Goyim B'Layla, that was speaking in Masechta Sanhedrin, which is speaking about what Dayanim. So Amela, two reasons why Rabbi Yochanan opted for the one-eyed person being able to judge, either because it was a rabbim or it's much more compelling since it was what placed in context with the other Dinei Mamanis and Dinei Nefash. Now, Reb Meir, Hai v'shaftu esa'am b'chaleis ma'idarish pei. Reb Meir, we had a pasuk, guys. Why does v'shaftu b'chaleis? You could judge any time, even at night. Why did Reb Meir say only during the day? What does Reb Meir do with that pasuk? Amarava lasuya yom hamunin, that you could judge even on a cloudy day. Ditnan, right? Ein royin es ha'negoyim shachris ubein arbayim. You can't look at negoyim in the morning or in the afternoon. V'lo mitoich habayis, not in the house. V'lo miyom hamunin, and not on a cloudy day. V'nei shekeya nearest aza, because a nega that is dim will appear bright. V'lo b'tzarayim v'nei she'aza, something that is bright near a keya, because of the power of the sun. The bottom of Rameya and hit Rameya. So therefore Rameya says v'shaftu, he darshans that the pasuk v'shaftu is a that you can darshan at any time. Guys, look at me. Even though he makes the comparison to the goyim, it's limited. The goyim you can't see on a cloudy day. V'shaftu es b'choleis, you could be shafted afil on a cloudy day. V'shaftu am b'choleis, meaning what? Even though we make a comparison between the goyim and dinim. Nonetheless, when it comes to a cloudy day, we have a pasuk to say no. V'shaftu esam b'choleis, that you could judge. That you could judge. Now there was a second pasuk. The pasuk said, "What does Meir do from the Hayom b'yom chiles banav?" Now Hayom, we use that you judge during the day. But Rabbi Meir does not need that for judging during the day. Why? Because he has the hekesh to Negoyim. If he learns from Negoyim that just like Negoyim are during the day, so too judging during the day, what does he do with the pasuk Vayom and Chilu, which is mashma the pasuk? That was the pasuk of the Tanakama. My Ovidlei, and we boy the Tani Rabbi Chanina, Kamed Rav Nachman, Vahoya Vayom and Chilu Espanov, Vayom Atam Mapil Nachlois Viatam Mapil Nachlos Belayla. And the Havamina is that only during the day, if a guy dies, you give Yerusha, not at night. Fred the Gemara, Amalei Almiata, Manda Shachem B'Yamama, someone who dies during the day, Yarsin Le his children will inherit him. Umanda Shachem B'Layla, Yarsin Le and when they won't inherit him, that doesn't make sense. So Dilma did Nachlas come. Maybe he meant did Nachlas. In other words, you can only judge did Nachlas during the day. The Tanya, in other words, not judge them, but to go ahead and give them out during the day. V'hoisla B'nei Yisrael Lechukas Mishpat, V'yroa Kol HaPasha Kul Liyos Din Kid Rav Yehuda Marav. Dam Rav Yehuda Marav. You have three people. They're going in. And this guy is holding what? This guy is holding what? By death. He's holding by dying. Okay? He's holding by dying. So three people come in to go ahead and see him. And they see he's dying. So Ratsu Koisvin, if they want, they can write up a tzava, they can write up a will. And Ratsu Oisin Din, if they want, they can paskin. In other words, since there are three, you have two methods. Either we saw this in above Basra, either write up a star, or right then and there tell them, and they'll paskin on the case. That's by three. Shnayim, it's only two. Koisvin, they write as an aid. Veinoisin din, but they can't write as dayanim. Okay. So Amrav Chista loishanu that three are able to make a din ella biyoim during the day. They can only be Eidim. Even though they're three, they can only be Eidim. Because again, you can have at night, they ain't Oisidin, but they can't, Mishum Dahavilahu Eidim, they're Eidim at night. They ain't Eid Nasadayan. And at night, they can only be an Eid. And an Eid, they can't become a Dayan. So therefore, they have to get another Dayan if they want during the day to go ahead and give it out. So Amalei, so Rav Nachman said to Rav Nachman, Ein Nachinami Kavina. I go ahead, I agree with you, right, that this is the correct shot.
Oh, no. Can't be.
When did I stop that? No, I
You started it.
what? That can't be, yeah. I don't know what I did. I have no idea. Okay, I'll find, okay, whatever.
It didn't click on us.
Okay.